Hi everyone! Today I'm going to share 3 baked vegan treats with you guys, and they're all sort of classic flavors but made vegan and gluten-free. So the first one will be lemon and poppy seed muffins. There will be a chocolate chip cookie and also some rhubarb and raspberry crumble bars. And I hope you're excited as I am to make them. And I'm proud to say that this video is sponsored by Skillshare, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard about them already, but for those of you who haven't, Skillshare is an online learning community created by creatives for creatives, and it has more than 25,000 video tutorials on lots of different topics. So it's a great place to learn new skills, try new things, and spark your creativity. So like I said, Skillshare has plenty of different topics for you to learn about. For example, you could keep learning about cooking skills, knife skills, but I'm most excited to share with all of you who have been asking me about how I learned about photography, videography, editing, all these things that you see on my channels, because Skillshare has plenty of video tutorials covering all those subjects. And when I was learning how to photograph, film, and edit, I definitely found it useful to learn from other creatives and for people who knew much more than I did. So if you'd like to try out Skillshare and learn from so many knowledgeable creators that are on there, then I have a link for you in the description box where the first 500 of you to click the link will receive a free 2-month unlimited trial to the platform. And now I'd just like to thank Skillshare very much for sponsoring this video, and let's get to baking. The first recipe we're going to make is for lemon and poppy seed muffins, and for this recipe I'll start by greasing a muffin tray, and I like to use coconut oil for this, but you could use any other oil or vegan butter or margarine as well. And when it's all covered, I'm bringing out my mixing bowl and adding some oat milk to it. But again, you could add some other plant milk that you like. And I'm also adding in some rapeseed oil, but you could use olive oil or any other liquid oil. Then on top of that, I'm pouring in some maple syrup, but again, you could use another liquid sweetener if you prefer. And then I'm adding vanilla bean powder. But if you'd like, you could use vanilla essence. And then I'm adding in the poppy seeds, which are one of the main flavorings for these muffins. And on top of that, I'm sprinkling some sea salt and grating in some lemon zest on my microplane. Then I'm cutting the lemon open so that I can squeeze in the lemon juice. And as always, you'll find all the measurements in a link in the description box with the full recipes. Then I stir up these wet ingredients and start adding my dry ingredients. So here is some buckwheat flour, and I'm also going to add in some rice flour. But as you see, I mix it a little bit between the flours. I add it gradually. And when making gluten-free baking, I like to mix different flours so that it's a good texture. So here I'm also adding in some almond flour, as well as baking soda and baking powder. And then I keep mixing it till it's really well combined. And then I'm gonna start adding it to my muffin tray. And this mixture makes about 12 small muffins. I just spread the batter evenly, and then I bake it in the oven at 180 degrees Celsius. And when they're done, I bring them out, I let them cool a little, and then I lift them with a knife like this to let them release from the sides. Then I just pick them out, and they're done. I thought I would show you the inside because I think these muffins came out really good. They're quite light and fluffy and delicious. So next up are some chocolate chip cookies. It's one of my favorite treats, and I start by adding some vegan butter or margarine to my mixing bowl. And I'm gonna mix it up with the sugar, and here I'm using some coconut sugar, but you could use brown sugar or white sugar as well if you prefer. I like the flavor of coconut sugar. I think it has quite a caramelly, rich flavor. And I'm using my electric whisk here to mix it all up, but you could use a fork as well if you like. And then I'm adding in some oat flour. And I decided to sift it for some reason. You don't have to do this, but it's fun. Then I'm also adding in a pinch of salt as well as baking powder and baking soda. And like I said before, I like to mix the flours, so here I'm adding almond flour as well. I give this a good mix to combine all the flours, and then I add it gradually as I whisk with my electrical whisk. But again, you could mix in another way if you prefer. I also like to give it a few pinches to make sure everything's combined before I add my chocolate chips. And I actually just cut up a vegan chocolate bar, a semi-dark one, into pieces rather than buying the chocolate chips, because we don't really have that in Sweden. Then I fold them into the dough and I prepare to make the cookies. So I take little pieces and roll them in my hands before placing them on a lined baking tray. And this recipe makes about 14 or 15 cookies. So I keep rolling to my heart's content. And when they're all rolled, I give them a little push to flatten them. And I like to pinch any little cracks, but it's not that important. And then I bake them at 175 degrees. And when they're done, I just take them out. I let them cool till they crisp up, and then they're ready to serve and enjoy. Next up, and the final recipe for this video, are some raspberry and rhubarb crumble bars. And I start by cutting the tops and ends off my rhubarb. And I love spring because finally rhubarb season is here, and this flavor is just such a spring treat. So I start by cutting it up into little pieces that I add to a saucepan. So we're basically gonna make a little jam for the bars. So I'm adding the rhubarb and then also some raspberries. I've thawed these raspberries from frozen, but you could use frozen as well. Then I'm also adding in some coconut sugar again, but you could use any sugar you prefer. Then I'm gonna add in some cornstarch to help thicken the jam. And then I'm gonna place the saucepan on the hob and bring it to a simmer. And then you leave it to simmer for about 15 minutes or so while you prepare the other bits for the recipe. So I start by adding some almond flour to my mixing bowl. And then I'm also gonna add some oats into the mix. To that, I'm also adding some buckwheat flour, and I think you can tell that that's one of my favorite gluten-free flours. And again, I'm sifting it in. I'm also adding some salt, and then I give it a good mix again to combine all the ingredients. Then I'm adding in some coconut oil, but you could also use vegan butter if you like. I'm also adding in some maple syrup for the sweetener, but again, you could use another liquid sweetener that you like. And I'm also adding in tahini, which gives it a slight nutty flavor, but it's just also really great for combining all the ingredients along with the oil. So I use a fork to begin with, and then I just squeeze it with my hands. Then I'm taking 2/3 of the mixture and place it in a tray, which I'm gonna bake the bars in. And I press it down to make the base for the crumble bars. And then I bake them for 10 minutes before I take them out of the oven and add the jam to it, which is now finished. So I spread the jam as the second layer on top of the base. And then I'm just gonna crumble on the last third of the mixture we just made. So you have the base and the jam layer and then the crumble layer. And my friends, this is really delicious. If you've never tried it, you have to. And then when I put the crumble layer on, I'm placing it back in the oven for about half an hour or a little less until it's browned on top. And then I slice it up into about 12 pieces. So it's a pretty generous mix. and then they're ready to serve. And you can eat them as is, or you can add some vegan ice cream or custard. It's up to you. But that's it, my friends, for the baked treats video. I'd like to thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and that you will try one or two recipes. And again, thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. And remember that you can sign up for a 2-month free trial to Skillshare in a link in the description box. Now, I hope you take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.